there. It's getting pretty warm where I'm at, so I'm starting to think about summer barbecues, and of course, with that, I am thinking of ice cold beers. So I thought it would be fun to create a beer bottle and walk through how I go through that illustration process. And I am kind of winging it, so there will be a little bit of experimentation here and there, possibly, depending on how things go and how lucky I am. So just bear that in mind. This isn't going to be a very polished video. Anyway, let's get started. All right, so we are going to start with my favorite shape ever in Illustrator, the rectangle. And to begin with, I am going to select like a nice amber color. I just want a nice rich bottle color. Seems like it'll be good. All right, I can live with that. Okay, now that we've got the body, we have to create the neck. I'm not too worried about alignment right now because I always just center align. And okay, I'm going to use the pen tool to add some points. So just right click and add anchor point tool. So we're going to add some points here to the neck because we want this to kind of bulge out a little bit from the center and then taper down. And that's looking a little wide. So I'm actually going to bring that in. If you're wondering why when I use my arrow keys, sometimes it moves a little bit and sometimes it moves a lot, it's because I'm holding the shift key when I want to do larger jumps. So like that versus that. So just hold the shift key. By default, it should be set to do that for you. If not, I'll look into whatever settings it takes to make that happen. Okay, I'm gonna add another anchor point in the center of the body this time because I want this beer bottle to have nicely sloping shoulders. I don't want it to come out at a harsh, 90-degree angle. Most beer bottles don't look like that. I'm gonna bring these down a little bit. Okay, I think I'm okay with that. And it's time to add the lip of the bottle. And I'm going to want this lip to be a distinct part of the bottle body. I'm holding Alt click to duplicate my item. And it's not wanting to line up properly, so we'll just use our handy dandy center align tool. Okay. As I was saying, I want this to be a little distinct from the rest of the body because I want to include some shadows, and it's easier to do that when the shape is not one compound path with the rest of the body. And I'll explain that in a minute. But first, I'm going to take these guys and I'm going to round them out so that they actually look like part of a bottle. Okay, so I'm going to make a copy of these, paste them off to the side, and we'll come back to them later. Okay, for the rest of this guy, we're going to hold everything together, and using our Pathfinder tool, we're going to unite. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to start with these shoulders. I want to start getting them to slope. And one thing you want to keep in mind when you are working with the live corner widgets is if you have two corners next to each other that you are going to want to turn into curves, you need to pay attention to the anchor points that are being created by the live corner widget tool, or the live corner tool. So you can see as I'm dragging this corner, those anchor points are moving at the boundaries of the curve. And if you pull them all the way to the next corner, you're not going to have any room to be able to make a curve from that corner. So you want to leave a little bit of room if you're planning on turning 2 adjacent corners into curves, which I am. So we're going to select those next. And we're going to let it just form a gentle slope. And we're going to take these points that we created to, you know, give a little bit of a rounded neck to it. We're going to give that some curve. There we go. And finally, we are going to get to the bottom points. I think I want it to be just a smidge longer, just because it's such a wide bottle. Okay, and I'm going to round out that bottom just to make it look a little bit more real. I always say that I want to make it a little more realistic, but let's be real. real. We are working with vectors, so that's not always possible, or feasible, I should say. It's usually possible, it's just difficult. Okay, now we're taking those pieces that we created before, and we're lining them up with the silhouette behind them. If you wanted something really basic, if you wanted just a silhouette, you would basically be done. You could just add like a rectangle here in this space to create a label and call it a day. But I want to get a little bit more in depth. So I'm going to start by creating some shadows here on the bottle lip. So I'm going to copy that and paste behind by using Control B. And then I'm going to lower that a little bit. And I'm going to adjust that color by lowering the brightness just a smidge. And one of those shadows needs to come forward. So I'm pulling up my layers panel. And I'm going to use the Control right bracket combo shortcut to bring that forward. If I wanted to send it back, I would use the left bracket while holding the Control key. So that's pretty simple. Now the thing about this is that these shadows should be limited to where there is actually mass, because shadows do not have their own mass. They're simply blocking light. So we only want these shadows to be where the body of the beer bottle is. So we're going to take the lips here, the lips, I don't know, the mouth of the bottle, and we are going to paste in front using Control F. And then we're also going to highlight those shadows as well as the body of the beer bottle. I'm going to zoom in just a little more to make this easier on me, because I don't have very good vision, to be honest. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to pull up our shape builder tool. Oh, it looks like we missed a segment. There we go. And we are going to hold the Alt key so that we get that minus sign next to our cursor. That's going to show that we are subtracting. So we're going to subtract all of the overhanging pieces that we don't need. And then we're just going to combine the pieces that we do. Okay. So unfortunately, we have also created a bunch of messy little shapes in here, like this. If I try to pull it aside, you'll see it's just a sliver, but we've got a lot of them here that you can see in your layers panel. So it's a good idea to keep this panel open when you're using the shape builder tool, because you'll see when things like that happen. If you have things aligned really well, it shouldn't, but it can be a little unpredictable. So keep that in mind. It's nice to keep your panel clean as much as possible. And when we did use the shape builder tool, it converted that back to the color of the body. So I'm just going to use the eyedropper tool to pick up the color of the other shadow. Okay, so we've got our little shadows here now. And we could use a gradient to make them blend a little bit better, but I am going to leave them like that because I prefer flat illustrations most of the time. I don't like using gradients a whole lot. I might change my mind and come back to it when we get towards the end. For now, I'm not going to do a bottle cap, but I will probably come back to that. So for now, we can just move on to creating a label. So I'm going to get the rectangle tool, of course. And just, oops, did I move that? Oh. Just make sure that's centered. Okay. And I'm going to change the color of this to a cream color. And I'm actually going to, I like the placement of it, but it's a little large. So I'm going to hold the Alt key while I transform this, and it's going to proportionally bring it in on both sides. If I were to not hold the Alt key, I would just bring it down from one side. So if you like where something is centered and you want to reduce its size or increase its size, transform it in any way, scale it, the Alt key is really useful for that. Okay, so I'm going to make another rectangle here. I'm going to find the center, and I'm going to hold the Alt key and grow another rectangle centered on that point. And then I'm going to just round out all those corners. There we go. Okay, so I'm actually going to want to unite these for the overall shape, but I want this to remain intact because I have plans for the design of the label. So I'm going to copy that, and I am going to just paste it off to the side, change its color so I can see it easily. And these guys I'm going to unite. Okay, so it's a little plain, a little boring. So what I'm going to do is use the offset path tool, and I'm going to put in negative, what, let's see, 6. 10 was a bit much. Okay, that works for me. Okay, and we're going to change the color of that guy. We're going to, once again, offset the path by another 6. And instead of doing another fill, we are going to leave that empty and change the stroke to the color of the outside of the label. There we go, just for a little bit of decoration. Okay. All right, I'm feeling that. Okay, so we're gonna bring this back to where it goes. Oh, and that's not what we want because it is scaling the corner radius along with the shape. I would like it to retain that shape altogether. So let me see if I can change that. Scale, scale strokes and effects. Actually, I think scale corners is what I want. Okay. So let's see if that makes a difference. It does, but we're still not getting what we want, which is that I want this label to line up really nicely with the shape we've just made. And it's not, I mean, I could grow it a little bit, just a smidge, and send it back behind that stroke. You know, that's not looking as nice as I would have hoped. So we're gonna go backwards a few steps. We're gonna experiment a little bit. We're gonna try offset path again. And we're gonna bring this in, let's see, that would have been 12 points plus another 2 for the size of the stroke. So let's go with 15 actually, or 16, just to see how far it goes. Okay. And we're gonna select the outside part and just move it. Okay, so that lines up a lot better. Okay, I'm happy with that. Although that is an awfully small space for our beer name. So I have to make a decision now if I want to keep that or not. I put in the effort, but was it really worth it? If it were more of a circle, I think it would make more sense, but for now I'm just gonna move it off to the side. Maybe we'll come back to it. I'm going to... It's a generic beer. It's fine. All right. Oh, here we go. I actually like this one. I used it recently because I think it's a pretty cute font. Okay. All right. That works for me. I just want to make sure everything is centered. Okay. All right. Nope, that would have looked atrocious. So let's just let it go. Maybe we can add some seals to this area. No, that looks also bad. Also bad. You know what? But that's what this is about. It's about experimenting. It's about learning, figuring things out. It's fine. Okay. So now we want to add a little bit of depth to this. So we have our shadows up here. It's time to add a little bit of highlight and shadow to the body. So we're going to go with offset path again. And let's see, that's a bit far. So let's go with minus, let's just go with minus 10, see how that looks. And we'll round it out. Oh, doesn't want to. You know what? Actually, it looked better before. Okay. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to take a copy of it, Control Shift V. Oh, actually, scratch that. Control F. Oh, nope, it wants to jump in front of the label. Control B, perhaps. Paste behind. Okay, and we're going to move it just slightly to the right. And we are going to use our shape builder tool to remove the excess, because what we're doing is we're creating a highlight going down the side of the body. And right now it looks a little odd, but we're going to manipulate some points to make it look a little bit better. So we're going to start with this point here. We just don't need it, so we're just going to subtract that. And we're going to take these 2 points here and zoom out before we do this, because we want to see the overall effect. I'm going to go to Object, Path, and Average. This is going to bring the 2 points together at an average of their current location. So right now it's set to both, but because they're pretty much vertically aligned, we could just go with horizontal, or they're horizontally aligned. We could just go with vertical, and it will bring them together at the vertical point between them. But we're just going to leave it for both for now. Okay, so we are going to convert this point to a curve. Oh, that actually didn't work out the way I wanted. Okay, let's see if we remove one of them. There we go. Okay, so they were overlapping. And even though it looks like 1 point, when you have 2 points in the same place, you have difficulty with doing anything to get rid of the angle that it's at. So now we can access the live corner, or we can convert the angle anchor points into a smooth point like that. So it looks a lot more natural. Okay. But this point here, where it starts to neck down and then it comes back out, doesn't look very realistic. So we are going to bring these points. Oop, that was too far. We're going to have to do it by hand. We're going to bring them in a little bit. And this is actually probably the challenging part of working in Illustrator. I know a lot of people find this program very intimidating, but there are so many tools that make life easier for you. This is just one of the things that you have to get a feel for it. And the only way you can do that is by practicing and experimenting. So I'm actually going to brighten this a little bit so we can see the effect of what we're creating. So just up the brightness and drop the saturation a little. Okay, and there we've got our highlight. So down here it comes down to a really sharp point. I don't like what that looks like for the overall, like the illusion it creates for the shape of the bottle is a little weird. So I'm just going to convert that into a round point or a smooth anchor point just to reduce some of that. And let's see. There we go. We pull back, we can see the effect now. And you know, a lot of this, it's totally up to you. It's your preference. Unless, of course, you actually know art and you've studied what how lighting works and that sort of thing, then it might bother you to just do this willy-nilly. And if you're watching me, just wing it instead of doing things properly. I am so sorry. But I did not study that stuff. So I just have to go for whatever feels right. Sorry for the awkward silences. Sometimes I just have to stop talking when I'm focusing on something. Okay, so that I think will look a little better if we don't make it contrast as much. So I'm going to undo a little bit of the brightening and saturation, bring it back down a little. Okay, I think that's a smidge better. We could also mess with blending modes, or we could apply gradients to smooth things out and make it more gradual. But again, I'm going to have faith that our flat shadows and highlights will come together in the end. So we're going to do something similar, except we are going to make a dark area for a shadow on the other side. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Object, Path, and Offset Path. And yeah, we're going to stick with the 15, I think. Okay. We're going to copy this, paste behind. Actually, I want to try something again. Paste front. There we go. Pasted in front of the thing that I was copying like it's supposed to. Okay. So I'm going to leave that one a little bit thinner than the highlight is. And I'm just going to use Pathfinder to minus front. That did not go the way that I had planned. Let me double check which one is in front. Okay, that's why. At this point, it would have been easier just to use the Pathfinder, but whatever. Just showing multiple ways of doing things. So minus front is going to subtract everything in front past that intersection. And we're going to go ahead and use the same color that we used for our other shadows. So we're just going to use the eyedropper tool. Okay, so we're starting to see how it works out. I don't want it to go all the way up the neck. That looks weird and awkward. So I'm just going to get the eraser tool and just get rid of that. Okay, and now I'm going to go to the smooth tool, which is hiding out with the pencil tool, and just kind of blend that out. Not blend it, but smooth it out so it looks a little more natural and not so hand-drawn. Okay, I'm gonna take this point here. We're gonna take a closer look because I'm not seeing that we can turn it into a live corner. So let's see if we can turn it into a smooth. Okay, we can. It's a little awkward, but we can. All right, so we need, like, the sharpness wasn't actually too bad, so we'll keep it narrow. We want it to taper off. Let's see. That's still not looking very natural. This probably extends a little too far. So let's just bring that in a bit and pull this handle in so it's not affecting it. So, oh no. There we go. And we're going to do something similar down here to what we did on the other side. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Although I am definitely biased. Okay, I'm actually going to select everything that's this color. So I'm going to go to select same fill color, because I think this is a little too harsh and I want it to blend a little more. So I'm going to brighten it a little bit. Yeah, that's more subtle. Actually, let's try that again and reduce the saturation a smidge. Was it better before? I wish you could tell me, like, as I'm going through this. It would be so much easier to get feedback. But I refuse to go live, so that's not going to happen. All right, the last thing I want to do before we move on to creating that bottle cap is add a little bit of shadow here to our label, just to give that a last bit of dimension. So we're going to take this and highlight the outermost shape of the label. And we're going to use our shape builder tool to subtract everything that hangs around it. And then we're going to finally take this and set that to multiply and reduce the opacity to about 30, maybe a little lower. Oh, there we go. Okay, So that gives just a little bit more dimension. Again, if you want it to be very dimensional, gradients are most likely the way to go. I just like the look of flat illustrations, and I don't know how many times I'm going to say that, probably a few more. So let's start on the bottle cap to give myself that opportunity. Okay. So we're going to start with about the width of the mouth of the bottle. We're going to go a little bit taller than that though. And we're going to center everything again. Oh, no, actually we don't want to center everything. I lied. We just want to make sure. Okay, you know what? I'm going to group all this together just to make things easier. And now we can center everything. Okay. All right, so we want this bottle cap to have some angles out here. So let's do 1, 2, 3 on each side. 1, 2, 3. We don't want it too angled, but just a little bit of slope there. And that seems good to me. So we're going to take this here and we're going to round it out a little bit. I'm actually going to change the color of the bottle cap just to make things easier. Okay. So we actually want to create some ridges here to illustrate the crimping that usually occurs when bottle caps are attached. So we're going to create a line segment the width of the bottom of the bottle cap. A little stroke, and we're going to go to Effect, Distort and Transform, and we're going to zigzag that. So 10 is a huge zigzag. Let's go with 2 pixels. And we're going to go with, let's say, 14 ridges. That's a bit much. You know, I need to move this up actually so I can see where the ridges are ending. Okay, so here you can see that this ridge ends pointing up, this one ends pointing down. So I actually want to change that. So we're going to go back into the zigzag tool. Actually, let's just undo a little bit. Oh, too far. Okay, zigzag. Okay, so we're gonna want an odd number here. Let's go with 13. See how that looks? That looks all right to me. And we are just going to flip that so that the angles come out so that it looks like a bottle cap. I don't know how else to describe that. Okay, so we need to remove these excess points here, but before we can do that, this path, it is not actually in a zigzag shape. You can see the red line going across that illustrates the path. It is a straight line path that has a zigzag appearance over it. So what we want to do is go to Object and Expand Appearance. And now that path actually follows the zigzag pattern. So we're going to highlight that along with our bottle cap. And with our Shape Builder tool, we're going to eliminate all of the excess by holding Alt and subtracting. Okay. And we can get rid of our stroke as well. All right, so that actually was a bit too much that got removed. So we're just gonna make it a little longer. So unfortunately that's gonna deepen our ridges a bit. But we want the bottom, the peak of the ridge to at least cover the entire top lip. All right, so now we're gonna take the direct selection tool and we're gonna get the tops of these peaks. Oh, actually, we're deselecting them, my bad. Okay. There we go. We wanna select those and we're gonna round them out to look like a bottle cap. All right, so one last thing I want to do to this is create an ellipse from ridge to ridge. Actually, yeah, let's start ridge to ridge. Can we find the... Nope, can't find the middle. Okay, so we're gonna go ridge to ridge. And, oop, if I could keep the width, go up a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna darken this to make it a little easier to see what I'm doing. All right. So what we wanna do, I'm gonna zoom in actually. This is a lot easier if you're up close. Okay, so that's not quite right. And let me see. Snap to pixel, let's disable that because snapping is getting in my way at this point. Okay, that's about centered. We're gonna wanna bring it in just slightly more, so hold the Alt key and just bring that in a smidge. Let's see. I think that'll work. Okay, so we just wanna duplicate this for each ridge. So hold the Alt key while you click, and then just drag it. All right, lining it up is gonna be a little bit of a problem, which I really want to get right, because then we can just duplicate our last action. Let's see. I can take the line segment tool and figure out about where we want to get this. So if I deselect this, oops, deselect everything, get the line segment tool, find the center point, and then bring it out to about center of the next ridge. Hopefully that's center. Okay, so it's looking like 7.8 pixels. Okay, what we're gonna do now is Control-Shift-M, which brings up our move tool. And we don't want to move it vertically at all, so that's going to be 0. And we said about 7.8 pixels. So we're going to move that horizontally. That looks about right. Oh, it could be off a little bit though. Anyway, we're going to hit copy. We're going to zoom out a little bit and hit Control D. And then we're going to have our copies. So they are off a little bit, but we can fine tune that in a minute. So I'm going to take this again, Control-Shift-M, and we're going to go minus 7.8 to get them on the other side. So copy and Control D. Okay. You know what? They are misaligned a little bit, but I will say they are close enough for all practical purposes. So we're just going to highlight each of those along with the bottle cap. And we're going to use the shape builder tool to remove the excess like we have been. Okay. And if we zoom out, that looks pretty much like a bottle cap. Could be better, could also be worse. So let's stay on the optimistic side here. That is pretty much it. Like I said, you can add gradients if you wanted it to be more dimensional, more realistic. You can add more highlights if you wanted to create a little bit more depth. But really, I'm happy with this. It's cute. It's my style, I think. So I hope this was at least entertaining, because I know it is no good as a tutorial when I am constantly making mistakes and backtracking and figuring things out as I go. But I do want to show you what the process is like if you're still learning, if you're starting out, which I'm assuming you are if you're watching this. And I just want to encourage you to do the same. Just experiment, figure things out. Because that's the way I've taught myself how to do pretty much everything I know how to do. So yeah, thanks for sticking around. Next time you crack open a cold one, think of me. Raise a glass to me. Let's just celebrate me because I did such a good job. Not really, but whatever. I want to focus on me right now. So I'm going to go get a beer. Oh, wait, it's only 4. All right, in an hour, I will go get a beer. All right, have a good one.